ladies and gentlemen, we are going to make our very own Georgia O'Keeffe inspired flower drawings. Now, as we've been learning about Georgia O'Keeffe, she liked to do drawings that were really close up. She liked to focus really closely on her flowers that she was drawing and draw them really, really big. She didn't leave much background space. You really didn't see much of the background at all. She filled her page up with whatever it was that she was painting. So that's what we are going to do today. We're going to draw some flowers and we're going to make them really, really big on our page. We're really going to fill this up. So one of the keys to doing this drawing is when we draw our flower, it needs to touch every side of our paper. It needs to fall right off the page, okay? So when we're drawing, every side of your flower needs to fall off the paper. So it's going to fall off all four sides. It needs to touch all four sides. We don't need to see much background space at all. And it definitely doesn't need to be tiny in the center. It needs to fill up your whole paper. It needs to come all the way out to the edges. Okay? So we don't need to see any of the background or just some tiny little bits of background. So you can make all kinds of different flowers. I'll have some different examples of flowers on some worksheets and stuff on your paper or on your table that you can look at. So you can do whatever kind of flower that you would like. But I'm going to do one here on our video just to give you an example. So I'm going to start here in the center with a circle that my flowers or that my petals are coming out of. And I want to make this really big since we're really close up on our flower. So I'm going to start out with a circle that's really big like this. And I'm going to make this a little darker to make sure that you can see it. Like that. All right. So that's where my petals are going to be growing out of. And maybe there's some seeds in this center that I can fill this up with. Maybe it's like a sunflower. So I can fill this up with some seeds that go around in circles like that. And I'll keep doing that a little bit later. So then I'm going to start doing my petals here. And remember, I'm going to make them nice and big. And I want them to overlap. So the petals on a flower lay over the top of one another. They're not all separate like this. They lay over the top. They overlap. So I'm going to start with one. And I'm going to have it come like this. And it's going to touch the edge of my paper. It's going to fall right off the edge of my paper. And then I'm going to start my other petal, the other side of my petal. And again, it's going to fall right off the edge of my paper. And then my next petal, it's going to be next to it. But when I start to draw it, it's going to touch that one. And I can't see this edge. It's coming behind it. But then maybe I can see the edge right over here. Okay? You see how that overlapped? But then I can see this side of it. Just like that. Then the next one, the same thing. I start to draw it, and then it comes behind this one that I just drew until about there. And notice that these petals kind of have an ellipse shape, sort of like a football or an eye. Now, if you're drawing some different kinds of flowers, they might have a different shape. They might be more rounded, or they might be longer. So whatever kind of flower you are looking at, whether you're looking at a real flower, or whether you're looking at a drawing of a flower, Just pay close attention to what the shape of it is. And I'm turning my paper to help me draw these petals a little better. Notice I'm still overlapping. As I'm going. And my petals are still falling off the page. Now maybe your flower has a lot of different small petals, that maybe they're smaller like this, but then there's a lot of them that build on each other until they come out off the page. That's perfectly okay. As long as the edge of our flower goes off of our page. And I'm just going to keep going around. And I'm turning my paper to make it easier for me to draw. Alright, now I'm going to speed up the video just a little bit while I keep drawing my petals all the way around. I'm also going to fill up the center of my flower here, and then I'll tell you about the next step. Alright, so there is my flower shape drawn. And notice I've got all my petals overlapped and all of them come off my page. They fall right off the page. So I'm going to put a few details in here just to make them a little more interesting. If you're looking at an actual flower or at a drawing of a flower, you'll notice there might be a few lines in some of the petals to show that maybe they're a little bit wrinkled. They have a few folds in them. They're not all the same. We can go along here and put a few lines to make these look interesting. Take a look at whatever flower you're looking at and really study it. See what you notice on it. Maybe there's some interesting lines, interesting shapes that you didn't notice before that you can add in, especially when you're looking so closely at your flower. That's what Georgia O'Keeffe really was paying attention to. When she was looking at these shapes so closely, you can see things that you don't notice when you're looking at it far away. You see the little interesting shapes. You see the little interesting lines that make something very unique when you look at it close up. Okay? So give it a few interesting lines. Look at the interesting shapes that you can see. And then I want you to think about the color of your flower. I want you to think about how you can make this really pop. And I want you to think about our color families. I want you to think about whether you want your flower to be a cool color or whether you want it to be warm colors. So remember, our warm colors are red, yellow, and orange. And our cool colors are blue, purple, and green. So think about what would work best for your flower. And then I want you to pick one color family. And so whatever you color your flower, if you have any background sections peeking through, hopefully you filled up most of your paper with your flower, but I've got a few little sections like this peeking through. You're going to color those sections the opposite. So my flower, I think, is going to be warm colors. I think I'm going to color it mostly yellow and orange. So any of these background sections peeking through, I'm going to color cool colors. So that'll probably be, I'm going to color that blue maybe. But I'm going to start out, since I've decided I want my flower to be warm colors, I'm going to come in and start coloring it. And I think I'm going to start out by outlining, drawing in some of those lines that I just drew in, and some of my lines, my outlines that I drew, I'm going to do those with some orange first. So I've outlined with orange, and then I think I'm going to come in with a brown marker and do the same thing with my seeds that I did in the middle, just sort of outline them to give them some definition. Alright, now that I've got everything outlined, I think I'm going to use some colored pencils to fill in the interior, and I'm going to do that so that I can do some different values. I'm going to color my petals in yellow, and I want to use different values of yellow. I want to use some darker and some lighter to make them look like they have some form. So I want you to use whatever materials you have, colored pencils, markers, to carefully color your Georgia O'Keeffe inspired flowers. Remember that you're coloring with either cool or warm colors on your flower, and then if you have any background showing through, you're doing that the opposite. So if you've got your flower as warm colors like I do, you're going to color any background that you can see cool colors. Or if your flower is cool colors, you're going to color any background that you can see warm colors. So I'm going to speed this up and color mine, and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. right, there is my Georgia O'Keeffe inspired flower, and I can't wait to see how amazing yours turn out.